You've heard the metaphor before? Two people look at the same glass of water. One says it's half full. The other says it's half empty. The liquid level is identical. The reality is identical, but the interpretation is completely different. The glass half empty mindset is not just pessimism. It's a cognitive pattern, a deeply wired habit of perception. It's the tendency to focus on what's missing rather than what's present, to notice risk before opportunity, to anticipate disappointment before success, to prepare for loss even when gain is possible. And here's what makes it powerful. It feels protective. For many people, this mindset didn't start as negativity. It started as self-defense. Somewhere along the way, optimism felt dangerous. Maybe success was followed by failure. Maybe trust was followed by betrayal. Maybe excitement was followed by embarrassment. The brain learned a lesson: lower expectations, reduce pain. So it built a filter. Now every situation passes through that filter. A promotion becomes, the workload will be unbearable. A new relationship becomes, it probably won't last. A compliment becomes, they're just being polite. A small mistake becomes, see? I always mess up. The glass half empty mindset turns possibility into probability of failure. Psychologically, this mindset is rooted in several well-documented cognitive tendencies. One of the strongest is negativity bias. The human brain evolved to prioritize threats over rewards. In prehistoric times, missing a danger could mean death. Missing a pleasant opportunity rarely did, so our brains became hyper-alert to risk. We remember criticism more than praise. We replay awkward moments more than victories. We scan for what's wrong faster than what's right. For someone with a glass half empty mindset, this bias becomes amplified. Another factor is learned helplessness. When repeated setbacks occur without clear control, the brain begins to generalize. My efforts don't change outcomes. Over time, hope shrinks. Effort feels pointless. Even when circumstances improve, the internal narrative remains stuck in defensive pessimism. There's also cognitive distortion at play. Patterns like catastrophizing, this small issue will ruin everything. Mind reading, they think I'm incompetent. And overgeneralization, this happened once, so it will always happen, feed the half-empty lens. But here's the key insight. This mindset is not a personality trait. It's a practiced pattern. And patterns can be rewired. Before we talk about solutions, it's important to understand the cost of living with a glass half-empty perspective. First, it affects emotional health. When the mind constantly scans for what's wrong, the nervous system rarely relaxes. Cortisol levels remain elevated. Chronic low-grade stress becomes normal. Even neutral situations feel tense. Joy becomes fleeting because the mind is already preparing for its end. Second, it affects relationships. People with this mindset often struggle with trust. They may assume others have hidden motives. They may downplay positive gestures. They may interpret neutral comments as criticism. Over time, this erodes connection. Partners feel unappreciated. Friends feel distanced. Colleagues sense guarded energy. Third, it affects performance. Research shows that belief influences outcome. When someone anticipates failure, they subconsciously reduce effort, avoid risk, or hesitate at critical moments. This creates self-fulfilling prophecies. The feared outcome becomes more likely, reinforcing the original belief. Fourth, it affects health. Chronic pessimism has been linked in longitudinal studies to increased cardiovascular risk, weaker immune function, and slower recovery from illness. The body responds to perceived threat as if it were real. When threat perception becomes constant, the body pays the price. And yet, the glass half-empty mindset persists because it offers something seductive: emotional armor. If you don't expect much, you can't be disappointed. If you assume the worst, you'll be prepared. If you stay cautious, you'll avoid embarrassment. But armor is heavy, and over time it restricts movement. So how do you shift this mindset without swinging to unrealistic positivity? The solution is not blind optimism. It's calibrated realism with intentional focus. The first step is awareness. Most people with a glass half-empty mindset don't realize how automatic their interpretations are. The thoughts feel factual. The tone feels logical. The shift begins by observing your inner commentary as if it belongs to someone else. Start listening. When something happens, ask, what is my first interpretation? Am I focusing on what's missing or what's present? What evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? This practice engages the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain, and reduces the dominance of emotional reactivity. The second step is cognitive reframing. Reframing doesn't deny difficulty. It expands perspective. Instead of "this will fail," try "this could fail, but it could also succeed." Instead of "I'm bad at this," try "I'm learning this." Instead of "nothing ever works out," try "some things haven't worked out yet." Notice the language shift. It moves from certainty of negative outcome to openness of possibility. Research in cognitive behavioral therapy shows that even small adjustments in language can significantly alter emotional response and behavior over time. The third step is gratitude training, but not in a superficial way. Gratitude is neurological training for attention. The brain strengthens whatever it repeatedly scans for. If you deliberately identify 3 concrete positive details each day, not generic ones, but specific ones, you begin to rebalance the negativity bias. Not "I'm grateful for life," but "I'm grateful my colleague helped me finish that task." "I'm grateful for the quiet moment during my commute." "Grateful my body carried me through today." Specificity rewires salience networks in the brain. The fourth step is behavioral experimentation. The glass-half-empty mindset thrives on prediction without testing. To weaken it, you must test it. If you assume social events will be awkward, attend one with a curious mindset and gather data. If you believe a new project will fail, approach it with full effort and observe the outcome. Treat your beliefs like hypotheses, not facts. Each successful experiment chips away at rigid pessimism. The fifth step is regulating the nervous system. Because pessimism is often tied to chronic stress physiology, learning to calm the body shifts perception. Breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, mindful walking, or short daily meditation sessions activate the parasympathetic nervous system. When the body feels safe, the brain interprets situations as less threatening. Emotional tone follows physiological state. The sixth step is adjusting information diet. Constant exposure to negative news cycles, critical social media environments, and comparison-driven platforms reinforces half-empty thinking. Curate your input. Balance critical awareness with constructive content. The brain absorbs tone from environment. The seventh step is social calibration. Surrounding yourself with balanced, solution-oriented individuals helps recalibrate perception. Optimism is socially contagious, just as pessimism is. Studies in social psychology show that emotional outlook spreads through networks like a virus. But this doesn't mean avoiding realism. It means choosing people who acknowledge problems while still searching for solutions. Another powerful tool is future visualization. People with glass half-empty thinking often vividly imagine worst-case scenarios. Use the same imagination to visualize best-case and most likely-case outcomes. This expands cognitive range. Ask yourself, if this goes well, what would that look like? What steps would lead there? This trains the brain to consider positive pathways as legitimate possibilities. It's also important to address underlying trauma if present. For some individuals, chronic pessimism is rooted in early instability, repeated disappointment, or relational betrayal. In such cases, professional therapy can be transformative. It allows old narratives to be processed rather than projected into the present. And then there is language. Language shapes perception. Notice absolute terms. Always, never, everyone, nothing. These words lock the mind into rigidity. Replace them with flexible terms. Sometimes, often, this time, right now. Flexibility reduces emotional intensity. Over time, as these practices accumulate, something subtle changes. You begin to notice positive details without forcing them. You approach challenges with curiosity rather than dread. You allow excitement without bracing for collapse. The glass doesn't suddenly become half full, it becomes balanced. You see what's missing and what's present. You prepare wisely without assuming catastrophe. You hope without abandoning logic. And here's the deeper truth. Optimism is not about predicting the future. It's about choosing where to place attention. Life will always contain uncertainty. Setbacks will occur. Loss is inevitable. But perception determines experience. A glass half-empty mindset narrows experience to scarcity. A balanced mindset expands it to possibility. Imagine waking up and instead of scanning for what might go wrong, your mind asks, what might go right today? Not as fantasy, as probability. Imagine receiving feedback and instead of hearing threat, you hear growth opportunity. Imagine entering relationships expecting depth rather than damage. Imagine starting projects focused on contribution rather than collapse. This shift doesn't require becoming a different person. It requires practicing different interpretations. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, doesn't stop in childhood. Repeated mental habits strengthen neural pathways. When you deliberately practice balanced interpretation, those pathways become easier to access. Over months, the whispering voice changes tone. Instead of "won't work," it says "let's see." Instead of "why try," it says "why not?" Instead of "won't last," it says "enjoy it while it's here." The glass half empty mindset once served as protection. But protection can evolve into limitation. When you teach your brain that possibility is safe, you don't lose resilience. You gain flexibility, and flexibility is psychological strength. Because the most powerful mindset is not blind optimism. It's grounded confidence. The ability to acknowledge risk while still stepping forward. The glass contains water, that is reality. Whether you see absence or presence first is habit. And habits, when understood and practiced differently, can transform not just how you think, but how you live. Your future isn't determined by how full the glass is. It's shaped by how you choose to see it. Thanks for watching.